Beshem Hashem Na'aseh V'Nasliach. Welcome everyone to our weekly shiur on the Parasha with the Perush of the Zera Shimshon, the beautiful commentary of the Zera Shimshon. This shiur is dedicated Le'inui Nishmat Mr. Levi Alav Shalom, who was the founder of Star, Yehuda ben Chaim HaLevi. May his neshama have an aliyah. He was a wonderful, great person. We have this organization. We owe that to him. He's the one who started it, and his yurtzeit is coming up. And also it's also Leilun Nishmat Zera Shimshon himself, Rav Shimshon Chaim ben Nachman Michael. He should have it should be in his merit that all those who are single should find their zivugim bekarab u'bizmano. All those that need refuah shalama, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give them the refuah tanaf v'shvat haguf, and the hostages should be released and sent to their homes safely. Amen. Ken Yeh Ratzon. Parashat Korach is coming up this week. We're going to do the fourth Derush of the Zera Shimshon, and I'll explain what's happening in the parasha for the newcomers, and the oldies will understand as well. So, what happens in the story of Korach in the Midbar, in the desert, is that Korach basically starts an uprising against Moshe Rabbeinu. Korach was Moshe Rabbeinu's cousin. And he was a great person. He was huge. He was a big tzaddik. But I guess at some point he lost his way, and he started an uprising against Moshe Rabbeinu, implying and saying that, Moshe has taken all of the honor for himself. He's doing this on his own. Half of the decisions that he's making were not told to him by God. He's making he made his brother become the Kohen Gadol. Aharon became the Kohen Gadol. He himself has taken the leadership as the king, and he's just giving out these, missions and giving out these honorary roles to people that he's decided he sees fit. Korach did this because he felt that he deserves it, and we'll see why. Obviously, he was wrong. Moshe Rabbeinu was not making any of these decisions on his own. He was being told by God who to choose and who not to choose, who's going to become a leader, who's going to have what task, what jobs, and what not. But at the same time, it is what it is. It says Korach had jealousy. He was jealous of the honors that Moshe Rabbeinu was getting, and he started basically making things, quote unquote, make sense for himself. And he actually gathered quite a lot of people. He had 250 people that he gathered with him. And these were great people that started going against Moshe Rabbeinu and following Korach. And we know how the story ended. Every single one of them got swallowed whole into the ground. It was a huge miracle that happened in the desert where Hashem literally opened the earth's mouth and swallowed them all whole to show everybody in Am Yisrael that Moshe Rabbeinu was right and they were wrong. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu actually asked for. He said, Hashem, please make a miracle happen that is so beyond abnormal so that no one will think some accident happened and they got punished. I want everybody to know that I had nothing to do with this. I didn't start anything. I didn't do anything wrong. Everyone for generations to come has to say, wow, you know how we know Korach was wrong? Something really freaky happened to them. And that's what happened. The ground literally opened its mouth and swallowed them. And we discussed it in other shiurim that we've had about how Korach, you can still, there were parts of that the Chachamim discussed that there were parts of the earth that you could still hear Korach screaming because they were damned for eternity. And there is a discussion whether actually Korach is going to be let into Olam Haba at some point or not, the world to come. Even that is in itself a discussion. Whether they're going to actually, when Moshiach comes, are they going to have any part in that or not? That's also a discussion. So now, we're going to talk about this fight that they had. Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Korach and his people, and he says to them, Boker v'yoda Hashem et asher lo. When Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach were going head to head with this, Korach saying what he's saying, and Moshe Rabbeinu telling him, you're wrong, you're absolutely wrong, I didn't take any honor for myself. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Korach finally, when morning time comes, it shall be known the truth, and Hashem will show everyone. The Zera Shimshon is going to ask now, what is this morning that Moshe Rabbeinu is referring to? Why do we have to wait for the morning for it to be known? Let it be known now. All right? You say you're right? All right, let's do it now, right now. Show everybody right now. What's this morning? And he's going to also ask, why did he decide to actually single out morning? Why didn't he say tomorrow or the next day or tonight? Why morning? You'll see all of it. As we know, the Torah is very explicit. It's very exact. And Moshe Rabbeinu was also very, very exact. So every word that he uttered meant something. There's something to be learned from it. Why he chose those terminologies, and that's what we're going to delve into. Amar lo Moshe Rabbeinu said to Korach, Gevulot chalak HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'olamo. This is a midrash. Midrash says this is what Moshe Rabbeinu actually meant to tell Korach. Gevulot, and this is so important for us every day. Listen. Gevulot chalak HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'olamo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be he is he, has set boundaries in his world. Everything has guidelines, everything's got boundaries, everything has its own place and placement. Moshe Rabbeinu said this to Korach. Everything's set in a particular place and everything has its own job. That's what he was trying to tell him. Shema. Then he follows and he says, Shema yecholim atem le'arav yom v'layla. Can you possibly think of the idea of perhaps being able to mingle night and day together? This is, the Midrash says, this is what Moshe Rabbeinu said to Korach. Do you think you can mix day and night together? At kan leshono, this is the end of this Midrash. What was Moshe Rabbeinu saying to Korach? First he says to him, listen, God has made boundaries in the world. And then he says to him, can you mix up, intermingle day and night together? Now, the Zera Shimshon is going to try to figure out what did Moshe Rabbeinu actually mean. And if he just meant, like, you can't mix everything up together, why use the examples of day and night? Why not other examples? You see how everything is so precise. So he says, Kashem. According to this, the time that Moshe Rabbeinu actually said this to Korach was daytime. Right? It was during the day. Kemosha Katav Rashi, as Rashi says, where he learns it out from. Ata et shichrut hulanu. So he says like this. All right, I got to explain this also. This is something that we can't really relate to as much anymore, but this is how it was then. And we have certain halachot that are actually decided because of it. Listen. Those days, there was no soda. Back in the day, like 2,000 years ago, there was no soda. There was no like juice per se, or like drinks to have with your meal. There wasn't. What was the drink that you had with your meal? Wine. That was your soda. It was wine. Everybody drank wine for lunch. Breakfast, you didn't have wine unless you were an alcoholic, right? Normal people, wine went down with, what did I say? Lunch went down with, I was about to say wine went down with wine. Lunch went down with wine. It was just a regular drink. And there's so many applicable laws in halacha about it, how like you had to mix the wine with water because it was very, very intense. It was like, how you get these concentrate juices and you have to add water? That's how wine was those days. Right now, wine is no longer, unfortunately, as it was those days. But in those days, wine was actually wine. If you drank wine without mixing water in it, it could be deathly. It was poisonous. It was so strong. It was so severe, you couldn't. So they would mix wine with water and have it for lunch. Therefore, there were certain things that you were not allowed to do after lunchtime in halakha. Like for instance, Kohanim bless Am Yisrael in Shacharit time. Every day during Shacharit, Shabbat, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every day, Sephardim We're blessed to have Kohanim bless us every single morning. Why don't we have Kohanim bless during Mincha time? During Mincha in the afternoon, we also have repetition of the Amidah. Why don't we have Kohanim bless Am Yisrael during Mincha, during the repetition of the Amidah, like we have on Shabbat for Shacharit and Musaf? Kohanim bless Am Yisrael twice on Shabbat, during Shacharit and during Musaf prayers. Why don't we have it for Mincha? The answer is, right. What? Right. So the answer is, because the custom was, you drank wine for lunch. You don't, and a Kohen, it's asur for a Kohen to come and do an avodah service, which was done in the Beit HaMikdash those days, a service while he's intoxicated, right? So there's no blessing of Kohanim after lunchtime. Before then, when people are on Shabbat, no one's even had breakfast yet, there's no kiddush yet, okay, you can bless as many times as you want. Once Mincha time comes, no more blessing because you might be intoxicated. So those are the laws that are put in place. So here, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, Ata et shichruthu. It's during the day, middle of the day almost, and it's time for intoxication. So he's saying to them, Kach haya yachol lomar erev veyoda Hashem. So he's saying, it could have been that Moshe Rabbeinu turned to Korach and said, listen, right now, we're not going to discuss this anymore. Right now, we're not going to bring God in between us right now to show who's right and who's wrong. For God to come and decide between us whether I took leadership for myself or was it God that told me to do it. We're not going to do that right now. Why? Because it's time of intoxication. Maybe you guys are drunk. Maybe you guys don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're fighting me because you had a little too much to drink. So we won't bring God in the middle of this now. We'll wait till tomorrow. Okay? We'll do tomorrow. So that's why Moshe Rabbeinu perhaps is telling them, Boker veyoda Hashem. When the morning comes, then we'll go in front of God and we'll ask him to decide between us. Maybe that's why he's saying it. So Zera Shimshon says, that doesn't really fit either. Because he could have said, Erev veyoda Hashem. Tonight, we'll go before God and God will decide between us. Because by nighttime already, even if you were drunk for lunch at 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, you're fine. You're not drunk anymore. So we'll go to God and have him decide between us tonight. Why say tomorrow? So it can't be because of this halakha of drinking, which was done in the early afternoon, 12 o'clock, lunchtime. It can't be that. So again, we have the same question. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu tell Korach, morning comes and it shall be known? We're going to go before God and he's going to decide in the morning who's right and who's wrong. And he says, furthermore, what is the, now this is where we get into the real questions, right? Really asking on everything. What is the connection between these two? The boundaries of day and night and Korach asking why Moshe Rabbeinu, for instance, chose Aharon as the Kohen Gadol, right? He's telling them, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, can you mix day and night together? What did that have to do with Korach saying, why did you pick your own brother as the Kohen Gadol? Or accusing Moshe Rabbeinu of picking his own brother as the Kohen Gadol and God not have been the one to do it. What does the day and night have to do with it? Can it come to our minds to say that Korach and his people, le'arev yom v'layla, that they were able to change boundaries of day and night? Why would they see Moshe Rabbeinu's point relevant to their claims? And if you want to say that they were actually drunk, or Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to get involved because maybe they might be drunk, what point was his warning to them anyway? It wouldn't have helped. If they're drunk, they wouldn't listen to him anyway. So it doesn't make sense. What's this analogy between the night and day? Telling Korach, what are you trying to do? Mix day and night together? You can't do that. And why waiting till the next morning? So now, we're going to answer the question and you'll see how relevant this is. in Bereshit, when God created the world, it says in the Torah, and God created the luminaries, the sun and the moon, ve'et hakochavim, and the stars. And he gave the reign of daytime to the sun, and the reign of nighttime to the moon and the stars. The stars always come out with the moon, right? Et hamaor hagador lememshelet hayom, the great luminary, which is the sun, he had leadership, basically, he got leadership for the day, and the hakaton, the small one, which is the moon, meaning its light is less, God gave to the moon. Ve'et hakochavim, and then it says, and the stars. Now, let me see if this, okay, let's go further, because there's a backstory I have to share with everybody, but let's see. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Midrash says, the Holy One, blessed is He, said, when He created the luminaries, Ho'il ulvana zo me'ata atzma. Okay, I have to give you the backstory. So, here's what another Midrash says. Okay. When God first created the world and the luminaries and the lights and everything, the sun and the moon both shared the same amount of light. The moon wasn't less than the sun. They both had the same amount of light on earth. The Midrash says that, so to speak, the moon came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a claim. He said, Hashem, can there be a world with two kings with the same crown? Can you possibly have two kings with the same country, meaning leading the same place, two kings? What the moon meant to say was, we have the same light and we have the same earth. How could it be that we're both the same with the same task? Shouldn't one be less than the other one? So that there should be a difference. You got the king and then you got the viceroy of the king. You can't have king. Right? You got to have the king and the queen. Something like that. So Midrash says, Hashem turns to the moon and says, that's a great idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. And since it was your suggestion, your light should be diminished. And that's when the moon lost its light. The sun kept its shine, and the moon lost its light. There's a lot that goes into this story. Obviously, these are all metaphors. What really went on, we don't know. But in order for us, human beings, to understand what really went on in those realms, it's brought down into this like story form of the moon went to Hashem, the sun went to Hashem with a claim. Can the moon talk? No, there is no man on the moon. Okay? It's just metaphorical for us to understand what really went on. The moon lost its light for some kind of a claim of why there is two luminaries with the same amount of light. So the moon lost its light, and then it says that because of that, the moon never said a word, never complained, and because it didn't complain, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a lot of mitzvot that revolve around the moon. We decide the month, the Jewish months, by the moon. We have a special bracha every single month, Birkat HaLevana. It's with the moon. We make the bracha on the moon, right? It was because the moon was anav. He kept his humility. Even though it lost its light, it did not argue about it and say, oh, that's not what I meant. Okay, maybe not. Why don't you take his light? No, that didn't happen. So therefore, we have a lot of special things. The moon has a lot of special things. So it says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, Ho'ilu levana zo mi'ata atzma, because the moon belittled itself, meaning it came with a claim. That claim made it so that the moon lost out. It became belittled, and it didn't talk back. It didn't argue about it. Because the moon belittled itself, lihyot sholetet balayla, and it's going to be shining during the night. Gozer ani aleha, I'm going to make another decree upon it as a reward. B'sha'ah she'yotza'ah, that when the moon goes out, she'yu hakochavim yotzeim imma, that the stars will go out with the moon as well. Meaning, I'll give you a gift. You belittle yourself. You didn't argue back when I took your light from you. So as a gift, as a prize, I'm going to make billions of stars be your entourage every single night. When you shine, the stars will shine with you. They're your soldiers. And there are literally billions of them. And when they leave, when the moon finally leaves, I mean, it doesn't leave, the sun comes out, but when it leaves, the stars also go. So the stars only shine with the moon. And as a similar example of this humility, Veshem Achiv Yoktan. Similar example of this kind of humility, we have an individual in the Torah, in Bereshit, in Parashat Noach, I believe. One of the great grandsons of Shem, who became the father of the Jewish nation, right? One of the great-great-grandsons of Shem became someone called Yoktan. And Yoktan was the youngest of his brothers. He was the younger brother. And his name was Yoktan. And the Midrash says, why was his name Yoktan? Because he made himself Katan. Katan means small, belittled himself. He was an individual with immense amount of humility. He was very, very humble. He saw himself not as great as his brothers, even though he probably was. He had a great amount of humility. And because of that, when you look at the parasha in Parashat Noach, all of his brothers became fathers of like one nation, two nation, right? It says he fathered this one and this one. He fathered Mr. X. When it comes to Yoktan, Hakatan, the small one, there's like two Pesukim. He fathered this, he fathered that, he fathered that. He made many, many nations. This little guy became not so little. So the Zera Shimshon is saying, you see something playing out over here. When a person, which we also had last week, if you remember, when a person has humility, it brings that person to greatness. You saw it from the moon and we see it from Yoktan. The moon had humility. It belittled itself and it didn't fight back. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, great. Because of that, I'm going to give you a gift. You're not going to be alone. When you come out at night, you're going to have billions of stars to be your entourage. They're going to be your followers. Yoktan belittled himself so much that the Torah calls him Katan. The small one was not so small. He actually became so great. So many nations came out of Yoktan. The little one. The little one that couldn't, basically he was very humble. He couldn't find his place. He thought everybody else was bigger than him. But don't worry, Hashem has plans. So we see this play out through and through the Torah and Tanakh. When a person has humility, they gain greatness. When a person has arrogance, they lose greatness. An arrogant person is left behind at the end of the day. So he says like this now. That was the Midrash. So he says the Mashma, the Midrash is teaching us in the merit that the moon belittled itself. He's always accompanied by hosts of stars. But the sun is not. The sun with its great shine is not accompanied by any other luminaries. Even though the sun is much greater than the moon. The same is true with Yoktan. Even though he was the younger of two brothers, he merited establishing many great families because he belittled himself. Now the main reason why Korach was fighting Moshe was because Korach had kin'ah. He was jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness. It wasn't a fight of L'Shem Shamayim for God's sake. It wasn't. Korach saw something he wanted. He desired the honor that Moshe Rabbeinu was receiving. He desired the honor that Aaron HaKohen was receiving. And he wanted this honor. And he said, now he's chosen Uziel, who is one of the youngers of the family of the Levites, I'm the eldest in the Levi family. I should have been chosen to be the head. What was Korach saying? Korach was basically saying, listen, even if you go according to age, I'm the eldest now. I should have been chosen. That's the norm. That's logical. What's Moshe Rabbeinu doing? He's playing favors. He found one of the young guys that he likes, and he picked him. While Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, I don't have any picking. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me, he knows the hearts of Am Yisrael. He knows who's going to be the good leader. He tells me who he chooses, and that was Uziel. Korach was saying, no, you chose them on your own. You're picking favorites. And he started a coup. He started a revolt against Moshe Rabbeinu. All because he was jealous. He wanted what? He wanted kavod. He wanted respect. He wanted the honor. He wasn't fighting L'Shem Shamayim. He was doing it for himself. L'Shem Atzmo. He was doing it in order to bring more honor to himself. Nothing else. So he says, he chose Elitzaphan. 1 second here. Sorry, I lost myself. That's why I went a little too further. ועיקר מחלוקת קורח הייתה מפני שנתקנא על נשיאותו של אליצפן בן עוזיאל שנתמנה נשיא. The main quarrel that Korach had with Moshe Rabbeinu was because Moshe Rabbeinu chose Elitzaphan ben Uziel, the son of Uziel, as the nasi, as the leader of the tribe. And he didn't choose him. Vaya katan mimenu, and Elitzaphan was younger. He was his junior. He was younger than Korach. Lekach amar lo Moshe. Now this is what Moshe answers to Korach. Moshe says to Korach, Lidvarecha shagedulot holchot achar hagadol. Im ken, says, if we go according to you, that greatness goes to the greatest, meaning greatness follows those who see themselves as great. If we go according to you, Korach, you're saying you're bigger, so you should have this honor, right? If we go according to your logic that the bigger gets the biggest honor, then the stars should come out with the sun. But the stars don't come out with the sun. The stars come out with the small moon. So if you're saying that just because you're greater in knowledge and greater in age and you have more experience, that's why you should have this gedulah, this honor, then the sun should also have the stars come out with it every morning. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Korach, Boker v'yoda Hashem. Morning comes and God will show who's really right. What did he mean by morning comes? Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, let's see tomorrow morning if the stars come out with the sun. If the stars come out with the sun tomorrow morning, then you're right. Because the sun is great, so he should have more greatness with him. He was trying to tell him, and that's why he was saying, can you mix up the night and day together? Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, you don't make sense. From the creation of the world, we learn that Gdulah, greatness, doesn't go to those who see themselves as great. Greatness goes to those who belittle themselves and are humble and show humility. Point being, tomorrow when the sun comes out, we'll see where the stars are. Guaranteed you won't see them with the sun. Because they are following the humble one, not the great one. And to add to this, Moshe Rabbeinu himself, why did he become Rabban Shel Israel, the greatest teacher of Am Yisrael ever in history? Because he kept refusing the leadership role. From God himself, Hashem kept telling Moshe Rabbeinu, I have chosen you to go and bring my children out of Egypt. I don't know, God, I'm sure there are other people better than me. No, there aren't. I'm God. I'm telling you. I know you. You're the one. But then Moshe Rabbeinu, for 7 days, but I have an older brother. He's much older than me. He's much a bigger chacham than me. You should choose Aharon. Have you seen Aharon? It's like, no, it's you. And after 7 days of arguing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, don't worry. I have a leadership role for Aharon also. He's going to get his part. Yes, you're right. He's Gadol. You have a different part. Why was Moshe chosen for this leadership role? Why did he get such honor come to him in the right way? Why? Because the Torah says himself, as we said last week, Va'ish Moshe haya anav meod. Moshe was unbelievably humble. No one comes to even the feet of Moshe Rabbeinu in humility. He was humble, he became the greatest. He became the greatest because he had humility. No one likes a big shot. They might, to their face, act like they like him. Nobody likes the big shot. Everybody kind of like a magnet is drawn to the person that keeps to themselves and is nice to everyone and is very humble and shows humility. Everyone's always drawn to them, right? No one's drawn to the guy that's loud and like, hey, I'm the, blah, 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 constantly blabbing. No one gets drawn to that. Have you seen that? In a room, usually. You see the person that everybody knows is the quiet one and the nice one, that's the one who always gets the attention. In high school, it's different. In high school, the loud one gets the attention because in high school, everybody's stupid. We're talking about when people finally grow up and actually understand greatness. Once you grow up and you look back and you go, have you noticed, those of you that are not in high school anymore at least, when you grow up, you'll look back and be like those loudest people, most of the time, those that got all the thunder, don't always end up with all the thunder. They don't. Those that were quiet and they were nice to people usually become very successful in life in many ways. And I'm not talking about always money. Success is not, the gauge of success is not money. Not. Success, believe me, success in a human being's life is after 120 what people are going to say about that person. That's a successful life. A successful life is what people will say about that person after he's gone or she's gone. That's success. Are they going to be like, puh, he was an arrogant joke who used his money to buy his way through everything? If that's what they say, that person was not so successful in life. If there were like a person, like we mentioned, Leilui Nishmato, it comes up, Mr. Levi Alav Shalom. He was, at a point in his life, he was wealthy, very wealthy. I never saw him be arrogant or show arrogance. He was very humble, and he always used his means to help other people. And everyone was always drawn to him. Why? Because he loved talking to people. Usually people that are arrogant don't like talking to people. Everybody, he liked to go to everyone, handshake. He would get upset if like kids or people, he would sometimes even come and ask me like, why don't kids come and like shake my hand? And I would have to tell him like, you have a certain, what's the word? He had a certain, No. He had a certain like, Not charm. He had a certain presence where kids, young people were afraid of him at some point. Like, that's Mr. Levy, Like
a rule.
Right? Yeah. He kind of had. People were intimidated. Kids were intimidated by him, and he would ask me like, I don't understand. Like, why? I want him to come over to me. He had like this handshake. He would teach little kids like, here, let me teach you a handshake. Do this with me. Little did they know that when they come up to him, he becomes like a child. This guy is in his he was in his early 90s. He has experience of World War II and like businesses that he ran and everything. Yet, all he wanted for people to talk to him, like children coming up to him and telling him, oh, I love you, Mr. Levy. Like, it was unbelievable. Someone in that stature, he didn't recognize that he had this awe to him. That's called humility. That's called humility that truly comes from the right place. It comes from the right place. He had the money, he had the prestige, he had the homes, and he was still, that's humility. There are people out there, unfortunately, that, Not that it means anything, but they don't even have that stuff and they're still arrogant. Like, what are you boasting about? What are we boasting about? Understand? Korach lost everything because of his arrogance. He lost everything. He lost all kavod. He was the greatest of the Levi'im. He truly was a great person in his tribe. He lost all of it because he wanted honor. Because he ran after honor. They say that honor is something that when you run away from it, it runs after you. The more you run away from honor, the more honor runs after you. Meaning the more honor you will receive. The more you run after honor, you'll never catch up to it. It'll always outrun you. Honor will always outrun you. So one time, a chassid was talking to his Rebbe, and he said to him, Rebbe, I know this saying that you run after honor and it runs away from you, and if you run away from honor, it'll run after you. I never take honor. I'm always running away from honor, but I honestly, to be honest, I'm asking a she'elah from my Rebbe. I'm asking a question. Like, I run away from honor, but I don't really receive any honor. So the Rebbe tells him, you see, when you're running away from honor, you're constantly looking behind you to see if it's coming. If you're constantly looking behind you to see if honor is coming, it won't come. What he was telling him is, you're really actually running after honor. If you're running away, making believe you're running away, but really running after it, you're not really running after honor. Truly running away from honor means really humbling ourselves. And it takes work. It takes work. We can't just humble ourselves by telling ourselves every day, like, I'm a nobody, I'm a nothing. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Truly humbling ourselves is through true thought. We have to meditate on the idea of who we are, where we are, what we are, what is our task in this world, where do we stand compared to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're so little, we don't even exist when we compare ourselves to God. His source of godliness in us, we're so finite. We're here today and after 120, what remains? Worms. When a person starts thinking like this, you could be the greatest, most successful person in the world, but you'll still have humility because you recognize all that stuff is meaningless. Problem of Korach and his people was that they lost track of that understanding. They lost that meaning. So he says, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling. He was telling Korach, according to you, the stars should come out tomorrow with the sun. But you're wrong. The moon had a complaint, a potential complaint. But it belittled itself in front of Hashem. Because why? He was saying, you can't have two kings with one crown. Okay, he was right, let's say. You can't have both the sun and the moon with the same light. But Hashem took his light instead. Now here there was 250 men that were the followers of Korach. All of them wanted to become Kohanim Gadolim. Why can't we be Kohen Gadol? Why is Aaron Kohen Gadol? What are you talking about? Kohen Gadol is one, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses that Kohen Gadol. What, all of you want to be Kohen Gadol now? You think you're all the greatest? You're all going to take the crown? According to them, they were trying to say, no, you could have two kings. You can have three, you could have 250. You can have 250 Kohanim Gedolim. So Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, what are you doing? You want to mix the day and night together? Everything has Hagdarot in the world. It's a very, very, very important lesson from Moshe Rabbeinu. Everything in life has Hagdarot, guidelines. Everyone has their task in life. Everyone's got their mission. And everything has its mission. That's why in Judaism we have so many halachot and guidelines. It's to teach us that everything has a mission. We could ask like, why do I have to wash my hands like this and not like this and like that? Why do I have to put my shoes on like this in the morning, my right shoe first and then my left shoe? Why do I have to do it like this? Why is it when I have to eat bread, I have to make this bracha? You know why? It teaches us that everything has rules. Everything has guidelines. The world is not this hefker place, this ownerless place where everyone can do whatever the heck they want. It's not. Everything has laws. And we all have a mission in this world. And through the guidelines of the Torah, we could reach that mission, Be'ezrat Hashem. But we have to follow the guidelines. We can't go astray and be like, listen, I did half of them, nothing happened. So that's why he says, "V'halevanim ata bichdi v'haya lahem cherpa latzet." So listen to this. Sorry, I skipped the part. Because I keep looking up, I go back down to the Sefer and I go on the wrong page. Listen to this. So this is a beautiful part, a very Kabbalistic, mystical part that I didn't want to miss. So it says in Gemara Sanhedrin, Sha'alu shemesh v'yarach lizvul, that the sun and the moon, when this argument was happening between Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach, when this fight was going on, listen to this, the Gemara says, you see how it all matches, watch. The Gemara says, for some reason, the sun and the moon went to God with a complaint, or meaning a request. The sun and the moon. Now we understand why it's the sun and the moon, but before that, you don't understand why the Gemara is saying, when Korach and Moshe Rabbeinu were fighting, the sun and the moon went to God. What did they say? Imata osed din leven amram, and they said to HaKadosh Baruch Hashem, if you intervene and you judge between them right now, meaning, Hashem, if you prove Moshe Rabbeinu right now, if you save Moshe Rabbeinu from this blasphemy, then fine. Tomorrow comes, me, the sun, I'll go out like I'm supposed to at the right time. And tonight, the moon will come out like he's supposed to at the right time. We'll do our job like we're meant to do, like you've set for us to do, according to the guidelines of the world. Ve'im lav, but if you don't judge between them and show Korach who's really right, lo netzeh, we will not come out. So now you can ask yourself, why did the dispute between Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach affect the sun and the moon so much for them to come out to Hashem and say, if you intervene, then good. If you don't, we're stuck. We're not going out. You're going to have a day tomorrow, ain't no sun. Why? Because if you, according to the words of Korach, the sun was supposed to go out with the stars. Basically, the sun and the moon were saying, the whole argument or the whole Tanai that we had in the beginning of creation, when the moon says, I belittled myself and you gave me the stars to go out with me, and the sun took light for himself, all of that would have been for naught, would have been for nothing. The moon is saying, my sacrifice would have been for nothing if Korach can continue saying what he's saying. Because what's Korach trying to do is, he's trying to mix everything up. Who says you get the greatness? I'll get greatness, he'll get greatness, greatness, everybody's good, everyone's good. He's normal, she's normal, he's a cat, he's a dog, everybody's great, everybody's good. Right? So the sun and the moon were saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you go according to them, then tomorrow we won't go out, because then I'm the sun, I'm going to go out with the stars tomorrow. Why not? The moon's going to come out in the morning and say it's summertime. It's morning. Yes, I'm the moon, but we've decided today the moon come out. That's why the Gemara says, at that point, the sun and the moon came before HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they said, now you need to judge between Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach. This can't go on because Korach is trying to destroy the guidelines of the heavens and the earth. He's trying to mix everything up. Now we understand this Gemara as to why this happened. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously, the din was with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu had the right side. That was obvious. That's a given. But it's beautiful to see how it makes an effect on the Divrei Midrashim, on the words of the Midrash, on the words of the Gemara, and the Torah, this week's parasha. Because if the ideas of Korach spread, this is what listen to what he's saying, if this kind of ideology spreads, then it's chaos. If everyone decides what they want to decide, who's who and who's what, you have a chaotic world. Where do you draw the line? Where is it that you say this is the norm? Where do you draw that line? Do you see how applicable this is to our day and age today? It's incredible. We live in a very chaotic world where everything goes. Everything goes. Like, people can decide what they are, who they are, but soon it's going to be what age they are. Why not? There was a guy that actually requested it. He wanted to change his ID, his age. He wanted to be like 20 years younger in his ID. He's like, why not? You tell him why not. Go ahead. What's going to be the argument? He's 63 years old. He feels 43. Who are you to tell him he's not? Is he wrong? Who can tell this person he's wrong? No one. You can't. Why would he be wrong? Why would he be wrong? Oh, why? Because he was born at a certain time. If you count from then to there, you get 63? No. I disagree. Your math is wrong. You counted wrong. Who said 2 + 2 is 4? Imagine some kid in a classroom says, I wrote 2 + 2 is 43, and the teacher gave me an F, and then there's going to be a whole thing in the schools where this kid's emotions were hurt. Why shouldn't it be 43 today? It's 43. I mean, if everything goes, then everything goes. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Korach. The world was created with a certain rule book, and that's the Torah. Certain guidelines, certain things go a certain way, and that's the way it is. It's called natural law. Call it whatever you want. That's the way it is. What Korach wanted to do was to mix those things up. I take things in my morale. I set my morale. Morality comes from me. I say I'm great. I say I should be the leader. All right. That's what we have, unfortunately, going on today. We need to keep our heads in our Torah. We need to see what the Torah HaKadosha tells us to do and how to react to certain situations, and that's what we follow. That's a Jewish life. That's what it is. Jewish life is a Torah life. You go according to what the Torah says is truth, is the emet. That's number one. Number two, as we said last week, and we continued this week, humility is the secret to all greatness. But that's if you're not thinking about greatness. Try that for size. Humility brings a person to achieve the greatest things. But if it's truly humility, and it's not humility to get to greatness. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.